Good afternoon. I'm back again. It's Penny with Family and Community Support Services. I'm here for our weekly Tuesday 1 p.m. Q&A for parents and caregivers of teens and tweens. So pop your questions on, and yay, here's Amanda. So I'm going to invite Amanda in, and then we'll discuss how we're going to do here. Okay. So, in case you missed the earlier online, and hi, Amanda. Yay, you made it.
I did. It's technology, I think.
Yeah. So, I think there's a bit of a delay.
That's okay. We'll make it work.
I was just explaining to everyone that they can email their questions to me at penny.pittman@fcss.ca, or they can leave them in the comments. I just wanted them to know that this will be recorded, and it'll be public. So if they're not wanting to have their question be public, they can email or text me at 403-915-4017, and I can answer it or ask it anonymously on their behalf. So do you want to chat a little bit about yourself? Or just introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Amanda Lawrence, and I've been with FCSS now for on 13 years already. I've always worked in the youth department, youth services, and my current job title is youth services coordinator. So I have been in all our rural southern Alberta areas doing multiple things teen related. I also have 4 teen tweens at home between the ages of 19 and 12. So I live it every day at work, and then I get to come home to it as well. So I'm not an expert, but I know a lot about everything, I think.
Your sound a little bit, you're kind of quiet.
Maybe. Is that better?
Yes, that's much better.
All right. You get to see my face real close.
Okay, so since we don't have anyone live on right now, I will bring up a question that I have. Both myself and other parents have asked. We've got some bad background noise. I can hear myself echoing. Am I too loud? Let's try. Okay, so the tween age, entering into starting puberty, starting to go through puberty. One challenge is dealing with the really big emotions. So almost like they were when they were toddlers. And obviously we want to preserve the positive relationship as much as we can. But how do we set those positive limits for their behavior and keep our own stuff together enough to handle all of the big emotions about those limits?
Right. So that is a super great question, one that I hear all the time as well. And unfortunately, there's no 2 things that work exactly the same for every kid. And as others will know, when they have multiple kids in the house, you can do one thing with one kid, and that won't work for the other. But basically, I try and focus on, let's think back to when our kids were toddlers. What kinds of things were they starting to do? They really wanted that independence. Routine was important. They were talking back as they were finding their own voices, that good old no word that they all say at one point. and we're just trying to lift them up, right? We congratulate them and cheer for them when they do any of those milestones. And you know what? The same thing goes for our tweens and our teens. So they are also equally in need of that kind of leap of independence while holding on to those other things. So as parents, I think we find it frustrating because we're like, okay, well, they're at this stage and we need to pull back a little bit from them. We shouldn't be in their space as much. They should be learning things already or holding on to those things that we've been teaching them. But in reality, it's connection, right? And so having that relationship with our kids makes it super important to their development, because then their experiences are staying true to their memories, and that in turn will help their responsibility, their respect, all of those things that we're already expecting from them, that maybe they just need a little bit of time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I think what you're saying is that connection is more important than ever, even more so maybe, and that the ability for them to do the things we expect hinges on them feeling connected to us.
Absolutely.
Okay. So then maybe we could talk a little bit about, for the parent, what kinds of things, or is there a certain way you might broach setting limits that you know they're not going to like, but that are necessary for their safety and health and well-being? Do you have a couple of suggestions about that?
Absolutely. Having that conversation with them. So again, as parents, we're like, oh, they're getting older, they should be remembering things, they should be taking on responsibilities. You know, we always have that kind of narrative in our head that they don't need as much help, right? But they do. And including them in the conversation helps a lot more than talking at them, right? If we're talking to them, with them, that will get you a whole lot more results than it would if we were like, okay, I'm making the rules, these are the rules, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, right? When you can have a conversation, whether it be through a family meeting or, you know, over dinner or several different conversations, but you could just be like, hey, like, I know you're getting older, there's some things that I know are going to happen or are already happening. How can we work through this together, right? And again, it might take one time, it might take 10 times of the same thing. But including them in the decisions will take that defense mechanism out from them a little bit, because they are trying to be independent, right? The talking back wouldn't be as much, because we're helping them find their voice in more of a positive way, right? As opposed to, again, talking at them.
Okay. Good stuff. So you mentioned talking back, so that kind of leads me into another little question about dealing with that talking back. So the idea that you're allowed to tell me how you feel about things, and you're allowed to tell me about your maybe not so happy emotions. However, you know, there's some limits about how that comes out. Do you have some ideas about that?
Again, talking to them. So I will tell you, all four of my kids, they have different triggers with me. So something will set me off amongst each of them that are different. But we've had conversations over and over again, and I've explained to them, I don't like snapping or, you know, getting upset or crying. This is what happens when you do this, right? And so tone, I think, is a big one for a lot of parents. And again, it's that conversation. You know, oh, do you hear yourself in that moment? Did you hear how your voice changed, right? Or, or sitting down and having that conversation when it's not even in that moment, right? So much conversation needs to happen with our teens and our teens to be able to stay connected to them, to create that environment where they want to talk to us and they want to compromise and they want to be part of the family unit.
So that brings to mind something I've learned with the young ones is something called sports casting. So when you said hey, did you happen to notice how your voice sounded there? That's like just saying what you're seeing instead of attaching a judgment to it, and that's cool. So I did that with my toddlers, and I need to practice that with my tweens because, yes, thank you for the reminder.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is, and it's not a negative thing when I say, our teens are like our toddlers. It's absolutely not a negative thing. It's reality. Developmentally, they're going through the same sort of changes, but then we're throwing more hormones on top of it as well, right? And so those hormones are what kind of gets us in the way, I think. Yeah, just trying. And I love how you said, like, don't connect it to the actual thing, right? Like, don't connect it to your tween routine. Just be like, whoa, I heard that tone, and it triggered me a little bit, or I didn't like that, right? Because those are things we want them to be saying.
And the modeling, of course, because, yeah, my tone gets a little bit pithy sometimes. Oh, we lost you. Oh, there you are.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's about 15. So we'll wrap up for today. So in summary, we want to not pull back when they're going through these changes, not assume that they already know all this stuff we think they should know. Be aware of our own agendas, and be a good role model, and include them in the conversations about limits and rules, and really listen to their feedback.
I have one more tip that I forgot to mention. If they're asking for help on a certain task, so we've got them to start making their own lunches, right? And they're like, hey, can you come help me make my sandwich? Instead of being like, you know how to do that, why do I need to show you? Get in there. They're asking for some support in that matter. They're testing us a little bit as parents to be like, okay, are you going to help me with this? Because if you're going to help me with this, then I might feel more comfortable coming to you as the things get bigger, and they are going to get bigger.
Great. Well, thanks, Amanda.
No problem.
Thanks, Facebook World. So this will be available on our Facebook page, County of Warner SCSS, and possibly in the future posted to our YouTube channel. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week, Tuesday at 1. Bye, everyone.